Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints in their Week 6 matchup, played October 15th, 2015 on Thursday Night Football. We're going to go over every score, we're going to go over the stats, and we're going to give our breakdown and analysis. So starting off in the first quarter, a little over 5 minutes in, Mark Ingram scored the game's first touchdown with a 2-yard run. Hocker added the extra point, and it was 7-0 New Orleans. Then with just a little over 2 minutes left in the first quarter still, the New Orleans Saints blocked a punt by the Falcons. As Mutai blocked the punt, he recovered the ball, and he scored the touchdown. So quite the play by Mutai. He just bowled his way in there and just kind of like grabbed the football off of the punter's foot, landed on it, and no one was around him, so he got up. Very heads-up play by Mutai to get up and get into the end zone with that 4-yard return after the blocked punt. So he just kind of like blocked it, fell on the ball, then just jumped up and into the end zone. And with the extra point by Hocker, it was 14-0. And as they, in the game, they showed the highlight from back in 2006 with Gleason, and Steve Gleason was there at the game. Of course, our hearts go out to Gleason, and we hope that they, one day find a cure for ALS. But the score, 14-0, New Orleans after 1 quarter of play. So on to the second quarter, and less than a minute in, the Falcons finally get on the scoreboard as Matt Ryan hooked up with Roddy White for a 7-yard touchdown pass. Matt Bryant added the extra point, and it was now a 7-point game with the score New Orleans 14, Atlanta 7. So that would remain the score going into the locker rooms at halftime. Then in the third quarter, about midway through the third quarter, Hocker hit a 31-yard field goal, and it was now a 10-point lead for the Saints, 17-7. Then with about 2.5 left, still in the third, Drew Brees hit Ben Watson for a 2-yard touchdown pass on 4th and goal. As they decided to go for it, they tried to draw the Falcons offsides, and then they ended up going for it on 4th down, and he hits Ben Watson with a nice play-action pass by Drew Brees. Hocker added the extra point, and it was now 24-7 New Orleans in the lead by 17 over Atlanta. So that was the score after 3 quarters of play. Then in the fourth quarter, about 2 minutes in, Devonta Freeman broke loose a 25-yard touchdown run. Bryant added the extra point, and it was now a 10-point game once again, as the score was now 24-14. Saints still up by 10. So then with about 8 minutes left in the game, Mark Ingram would push ahead on a 1-yard touchdown run, his second touchdown of the game. And then Hocker added the extra point, and it was back to a 17-point lead for the Saints, 31-14. Then in garbage time, with about a minute and a half left, Matt Ryan hit Devonta Freeman for Freeman's second touchdown of the game. He had the one rushing and now the one receiving, a 13-yard reception for the touchdown. The extra point by Bryant was good, and it was now a 10-point game with the score 31-21. And the Falcons needed 2 scores in 90 seconds, less than 90 seconds. They went for the onside kick. They didn't recover. The Saints would bring the game to a close, and they win this one 31-21 as the New Orleans Saints hand the Falcons their first defeat of 2015, as the Atlanta Falcons are no longer undefeated. They're now 5-1. Their first loss of the season is also their first loss in the division. And the Saints are now 2-4 on the season, and they're actually 2-1 at home. So they have a winning record at home. It looks like they're back to their winning ways, at least in New Orleans. Of course, we'll see if that translates to the road. But in this game, I really I wouldn't put a lot of stock in this one in terms of the Falcons losing. It might actually turn out to be a good loss for the Falcons. And I would say that because, it's the type of loss that could build some character for them, to be able to kind of like bring them back down to earth, the thing was, I mean, with them 5-0, they did it in a lot of crazy ways. Like, everything just happened to go their way. They were making all the big plays in those first 5 games, but then here in this game, quite the opposite. They were making all kinds of mistakes. There was that block punt that we saw, in the first quarter, and then even just the fumbles. They had 5 fumbles in this game. They lost 3 of those fumbles, and that really hurt them in this game, was those turnovers, the 3 turnovers. And if you're turning the ball over like that, and then the way Drew Brees was playing, and Drew Brees is Drew Brees. Drew Brees, in my opinion, is a future Hall of Famer. I don't think that's even up for debate. I mean, the guy's got a Super Bowl ring. He's 4th all-time on the touchdown list, behind, Peyton, Brady, and Favre, not in that order, but you know what I'm saying. And so, I mean, Drew Brees showing he still can get it done, even with a little bit of a nagging shoulder injury. He comes out and has another big game. He's been throwing the rock pretty good. He was under some pressure by the Falcons, but it was actually the New Orleans defense that was getting the pressure to Matt Ryan. But let's go over the stats in this game. And Drew Brees, 30 for 39, 312 yards passing, 1 touchdown, and he also rushed the ball twice for 2 yards. Matt Ryan, 30 of 44, 295 passing yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. So he actually threw 1 more touchdown than Brees. And he had 10 yards on the ground off of 4 carries. Of course, Mark Ingram had the 2 touchdowns for the Saints. And it was interesting because, I mean, Ingram rushed the ball 20 times in this game, and he only had 46 yards rushing. So, I mean, he really was not moving the ball, on the ground too well. But he did punch those, 2 short runs into the end zone, but only 46 yards off of 20 carries. It was funny because he seemed like he was running the ball well, but he was getting stopped a lot too. But he was eating up, the game clock, and they just kept going back to the run. And conversely, on the other side, you saw Devonta Freeman, 13 carries, 100 yards, and 1 touchdown rushing. He also had another touchdown receiving off of 8 receptions and 56 yards, giving him 156 total yards in the game. And that was something I was wondering, why aren't they running the ball more? Atlanta, why not? And even Tevin Coleman, 4 carries, 40 yards, averaging 10 a carry. Freeman almost that too. And then Matt Ryan, the 4 runs and 10 yards. And for New Orleans, like I said, they were committed to the run. Kyrie Robinson got 7 carries for 23 yards, and Spiller 3 carries for 10 yards. As they ran the ball 30 times. And on the other side, the Falcons, they ran the ball 21 times. So they really weren't committed to the run. And I thought that the offensive line was struggling with the pass protection for Atlanta. It's the Saints were getting that rush in there. They were getting a lot of pressure on Matt Ryan. They sacked him, I believe, 5 times in this game. So they were getting after him. And 5 times they sacked him. But you wondered, at least I wondered watching the game, why aren't the Falcons giving the ball more to Freeman, at least, on the running game? Of course, the Saints defense was just, they had the Falcons number. These 2 teams are division rivals, and that's the thing too, is when these 2 teams get together, regardless of their record, they always play each other, pretty tight. Even they seem to have each other's numbers, and especially in New Orleans, the Saints play the Falcons really well. Of course, when they go to Atlanta, it's going to be another story, But in this game, it was in New Orleans, and Drew Brees was just playing phenomenal. He was under some pressure by the Falcons' defense, but he just kept getting rid of the ball, kept spreading it around. So he got out to 7 different targets, and the main target was the tight end Ben Watson, as Watson had a career-high 127 yards in this game, 10 receptions, and a touchdown. And that was on a 4th and goal. A huge clutch play there for the Saints. That was the Saints, too. They made that, that punt block. That was a big play. That 4th and goal touchdown to Watson. They came up with the big plays when they needed them. They came up clutch in this game at home. And that performance by Watson, I mean, watching, you're kind of seeing it and you're like, wow, maybe it was Drew Brees all along and not so much Jimmy Graham. Because, not that, Jimmy Graham is good and all, but you see, he's struggling, and Drew Brees is still getting the job done regardless of who's the target. And Snead, 4 catches for 55 yards. Cooks, 4 catches for 41 yards. Hill, 3 catches for 38 yards. And Kyrie Robinson had 2 catches for 24 yards to go along with his 23 yards rushing, giving him 47 total yards in the game. CJ Spiller also with 4 receptions for 17 yards, which gave him a total of 27 yards in the game. Ingram also had 3 catches for 10 yards, which brought his total yardage up to 56. And for the Falcons, Julio Jones, who's kind of banged up, he's fighting off injuries, but he's in there, and he had 6 receptions for 93 yards. Freeman, they said, 8 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown to go along with his 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. So he had 156 total yards, 2 total touchdowns. Hankerson, he's also got some nagging injuries, but he was suited up, and he had 4 receptions for 37 yards. Tammy, 3 receptions for 32 yards. Roddy White, 3 receptions for 23 yards. That was the thing, is that the Falcons are a little banged up too, and then especially in that receiving core, and that's been their strength. Hankerson fighting off some injuries, Julio Jones as well, and that was kind of thing. It seemed like as if they weren't able to really get into quite that rhythm that they usually do in their passing game, but they weren't going to the run. I thought they were going to run the ball more, but it seemed that the Saints had figured that too, and that they kind of, were lining up in run defenses, and maybe Matt Ryan's audibling. But the thing was, when Freeman did get the ball in his hands, he was having success, especially on the ground. Coleman too. Like I said, that made me wonder, why aren't they running the ball more? I thought that was interesting. But the kick-in, Hawker was actually just 1 for 3, missed 2 field goals. 4 for 4 on the extra points, though. Bryant, 3 for 3 on the extra points, did not attempt the field goal. Then on defense, Ellerby, 13 tackles in this game for the Saints. He also forced a fumble. Kikaha had a sack and a forced fumble as well. Cameron Jordan, 3 sacks and a forced fumble. That was the thing, like, they were getting after Matt Ryan in this game. They had 5 total sacks. Edebali had a sack as well. Of course, no interceptions by either quarterback, as they're making smart decisions with the ball. Claiborne had a sack for the Falcons, and that was their only sack. Warlow was their leading tackler with 7 tackles. We look at first downs, 25 for the Saints, 23 for the Falcons. And on third down, that's really where a big difference in this game. That's really where you saw the Falcons struggling in their passing game, was on third down. Then that's where the Saints were really getting the rush after Matt Ryan. And that's really, I thought, where it was kind of exposed, like the, limit, how the Julio Jones and Hankerson were a little limited in what they could do physically. Because in third downs, the Saints were 8 of 16, 50%. The Falcons, just 3 of 12. 25% conversion rate. And on fourth down, the Saints went for it once. They did convert. The Falcons actually went for it 4 times on fourth down in this game. They actually converted 3 of them, so 75%. Total net yards, 413 for Atlanta, 385 for New Orleans. Net rushing, 150 for the Falcons, 81 for the Saints. And net passing yards, 304 for the Saints. Brees was sacked just once in this game, although he was under a lot of pressure. Even the stats don't really show that, but they were getting after him. He was running around like crazy. It was a really amazing performance by Drew Brees, as always. I mean, the guy gives 100% every time he steps on the field. There's no doubt about that. He is one heck of a competitor. And then on the other side, 263 netted for the Falcons. Matt Ryan was under heavy pressure. It really, to me, I thought both pass protections were struggling. The pass blocking in this game was not very good. 5 times Matt Ryan was sacked, and it was a total loss of 32 yards. Then we look at the penalties. 7 penalties for the Falcons, more than twice as many than the Saints, and they were penalized 41 yards. Just 3 penalties for New Orleans for only 15 yards. So they're pretty disciplined in this game. Whereas not much discipline on the Atlanta side. At least that's, watching it, they didn't look very disciplined. Not too many penalties, but just the fumbles, the 5 fumbles, they lost 3 of them. With getting that punt blocked. Part of that is Sean Payton's always been really good with his special teams. And that play, they said that they put that in specifically this week for the Falcons, that they had saw something in the game film where they knew that they could block the punt. I actually thought whenever the Falcons punted it, I was like, man, I can't believe they didn't block another one. Because you see this big hole like right up the middle, and that's where Mate, he came up the gut and just bowled his way right up the middle to block that punt. And so I was almost surprised watching later. I was like, man, I'm surprised they ain't going at him for another one. Because that the offensive line still, is a little suspect there on both sides, really. But we look at the red zone. The Saints 3 for 5 in the red zone, converting 60%. And the Falcons 2 for 3, converting 66%. As they both missed some red zone opportunities. And then a time of possession, 32 minutes and 30 seconds for New Orleans, 27 minutes and 30 seconds for the Falcons. And that was the thing, is that the Saints were committed to the run. They weren't getting a lot of production out of the run. Yes, they did have those 2 touchdowns by Mark Ingram, but like I said, he barely averaged over 2 yards a carry, which is 46 yards off of 20 carries. But he just kept pounding the ball. He did have that 11-yard run, but a lot of time he was getting stopped for like no gain, 1 yard, 2 yards, even getting stopped for losses. But Freeman, like I said, he was getting it done on the ground, but he just wasn't getting the touches. And I thought that was odd. I thought that in this game, being that they had the injuries at their receivers, with Jones and Hankerson being banged up, I thought maybe they would lean on the run a little more. They did, go for Freeman. Like, they were incorporating him into the offense a lot, as he has been a huge part of their offense this season, as he's been just having a monster breakout year. But they weren't giving him the ball out of the backfield that much. It seemed like they were more trying to give him the ball, on those passing screen plays and those little bootleg plays and stuff. But I just thought that this game was kind of almost a fluke in a way, not really, but sort of. It kind of exposed the Falcons' weaknesses a little bit, but at the same time, like I said, they weren't 100% in this game, coming off a short week against a division rival on the road. I don't think that's why I said it's almost like a fluke thing. As long as the Falcons take away the right thing from this, and I believe they will, because I think Dan Quinn is doing an excellent job in Atlanta. He's got them playing really well. They had been playing pretty disciplined, I thought, all year until this game, where they made a lot of mistakes. I think that they're going to correct that. They get the long week now to get healthy, to look at this game film, make the corrections, see what they did wrong. A lot of it was just being sloppy. A lot of it to, being that the Saints just know them so well. You face them twice a year. It's tough to be able to beat a team twice every year, So, going in, it looked like, oh, yeah, the Falcons, they're 5-0, they're unstoppable. But the Saints, even at 1-4, heading into the game, now they're 2-4, they were a team that was, kind of sitting in the weeds, waiting to strike and to take the Falcons, undefeated, record away from them and hand them their first loss of the season. That's a lot of times how it happens. Is that a team will be undefeated, then they go against a division rival whose record isn't even that good on the year, and then boom, they lost this team. The thing is, though, the Falcons, they only have 2 more games by teams with winning records as of this moment. Who knows, by the time they face teams down the line, maybe they'll have a winning record. But right now, as it stands, they have the easiest schedule the rest of the way. They only face 2 more teams with winning records, and that's, they're facing the Colts, and then they'll be facing the Panthers twice. So, but other than those 3 games, every other game they play is against a team that currently has either a losing record or is at 500. So they definitely are still in the driver's seat. Of course, the Panthers are 4-0. They're undefeated as it stands, but they've got a tough game on the road against Seattle. So we'll see where things are at, after Week 6 is done. But I won't really get too worried if I was a Falcon fan. And of course, the Saints, the way Drew Brees is playing, that's promising. The way that defensive pass rush was playing is also promising. If they can continue to get after quarterbacks the way they were in this game, and if Drew Brees continues to be Drew Brees, and that's who he is, so he gonna be that, well then, the Saints could win some games this year. Although they've, got a big hole to climb out of it, 2-4. But they definitely showed some promise. And I also thought the fact that even though they weren't getting necessarily a lot of production in the yard department, the fact that they were committed to the run, and then, the fact that they were able to punch it in the red zone with those 2 red zone rushing touchdowns, that was a very good sign for them as well. So it's definitely a good game. Like I said, when these 2 teams get together, it's always exciting. It's always fun to watch. I actually watched this game a couple times. I watched it when it was on. I was also watching the baseball. Then I watched the replay. Then I went back and watched it again and paid a little more attention and just really focused on some things I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss some elements of the game. So I watched it like 3 times. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and have a great weekend and enjoy all the sports.